After you all eat, I expect more from you.
Freilich and Chanukah, Yeshur David, the Kollel, what a... just want to say one sentence. The fact that there's an olam learning here every morning is the joy of my life. There's nothing that makes the shul more worthwhile, the building more worthwhile. There's so many things here, Baruch Hashem, Tefillah and Kehilla, but this is like something, and it should be a bracha for you and your family. You should have nachas from him and from everybody. Also, help to sponsor today is Simcha Ezra ben Sarah. Just want to, he asks that we all daven that he should have particular hatzlacha in these days. He needs hatzlacha, so Hashem should give him hatzlacha. Amen. The Mishnah Berurah at the beginning of Hilchos Chanukah tells the story, and it's a story we all know. Story from the Gemara. And he says, that during the Greek rule, occupation of Israel, Gazru Gzeres al Yisrael, Bitlu Dasam, Leinichu, Aisam, Lasik, B'Torah, Mitzvahs. They didn't let us do Torah and Mitzvahs. It's important that the Greeks never tried to, as far as I know, at least at this time, didn't try to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. They didn't try to kill us. There were no concentration camps. There was a lot of the things that Jews went through the years and through the generations. That's not what it was with the Greeks. This was a cultural war. It was a war of trying to get the Jews to stop, to blend in with everybody else, just be like everybody else. Would have to be separate. Interesting. I mentioned in the morning that Ufartzu chaymai smigdalai. That's what we say in most Surah. Ufartzu chaymai smigdalai. They knocked down the walls of our towers, the Beis HaMikdash. They didn't really knock down the walls. There was no Fartzu Choyvay Smigdalai. That didn't happen until the Romans, that they knocked down the Beis HaMikdash, or the Babylonians earlier. But Fartzu Choyvay Smigdalai means that there was a srog, like Saragim. There was a srog, a little srog that went around in the Beis HaMikdash. It was only 10 svachim high, like this table. And it wasn't something that people couldn't walk through. It was like the things you see in a theater, you know, with the two brass poles and a little velvet thing going between. And that was Lahafrid Bein Yisrael Lagoyim. That was the purpose of that. Like the tourists could come to the Beis HaMikdash, everyone could come and look at the Beis HaMikdash. We're very open, but Adkan, you could only go until this srog. The Yevonim did not like that. The Fartzu Chayvay Smigdalai means they knocked down that little barrier. That's all they knocked down, that little barrier. And when we put it down, when we put it back up, during the time of the Chashmonaim, they made a takana, the Mishnah says in Midos, that everybody should walk by where they were poritz. There were 13 britzas, where they should walk by. Everyone should be mishtachava to the Heichal Hashem. So that's what the Greeks did, and the Mishnah Berurah says it this way: Lo hinicha mo'isam lasik b'Torah mitzvah, supashtu yadam b'mamoinam. ubivnoiseihem, nichnasu lahechel upartzu by protzais, betimu ataharais, and they were matama that which was tahar. All a paraphrase from the Gemara. Timu kol hashmanim, b'tzar lahem liyisrael ma'oid mipneihem, and we had a lot of aggravation because of this. Ulochotzam lachatz gadol, and Yiddishkeit took a lot of pressure from this. Took a big hit. We know, by the way, that every time I say this, I get into a little bit of controversy, but most of the Jews at the time became Misyavnim. Most became, non-observant Jews, like, let's go with the culture, let's go with the trend, let's go with the way the Greeks are telling us it's a good thing, it's scientific, it's a good thing, let's go that way. It was just really a bunch of Kanoim, like us, that were against that. V'gavru, now here's the point I want to underline today. V'gavru b'lei chashmonai hakohanim hagidolim. And then there was a gevura, in other words, strengthening of the b'nei chashmonai hakohanim hagidolim, who were the kohanim gedolim. Now, I'm just making a diuk in the Mishnah Berurah. There was only one Kohen Gadol. There never, in fact, it's a big deal that there's always only one Kohen Gadol. We didn't have like a breakaway Kohen. We did, but not in the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash was one Kohen Gadol, period, and there was only one Kohen Gadol during the whole Hanukkah story, which was Vayihi Bimei Matisyahu ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol's name was Matisyahu. Hashmonai Uvanam. He was the Kohen Gadol, not Yochanan.
Matisyahu was Yochanan the Kohen Gadol.
Going on Matisyahu. Look at the Mefarshim. Matisyahu and Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Matisyahu was the, otherwise, Vayihi Bimei is the Kohen Gadol. Vayihi Bimei Matisyahu ben Yochanan, and who was this Matisyahu? Let's put him in context. Ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Which, in fact, like Shaul's saying, how do I know that it's not, that it was the time of Matisyahu during the time of Yochanan Kohen Gadol, because in history that's not true. It's Matisyahu. The Mefarshim, if you look in the Mefarshim, they all say it's going on Matisyahu. But then the question is like, why? I mean, it's not really necessary for Yochanan Kohen Gadol to be even mentioned here. It was like it was a generation earlier. Puzzling character, by the way, because the Gemara says Yochanan Kohen Gadol Shimesh Bekuna Shmoinim Shana V'Acher Kach Laset Tzeduki. Now, I don't know. Same one or not. Might have been a different one. But the Mefarshim learned it's the same one. So he was a Kohen Gadol for 80 years. Not only a Kohen Gadol for 80 years, but he lasted 80 years as a Kohen Gadol. Meaning he went into the Kodesh HaKodshim, the Beis HaMikdash, and V'acher Kach Naset Tzduki, on this, he said, Al Tabed Ba'atzmacha Yoy Misascha. You never know what's gonna happen to you. You got to be careful. Don't ever assume that you're all set. So Yochanan Kohen Gadol Shimesh Beguna Shmoinim Shana. According to the historians, by the way, just in parentheses, this Yochanan Kohen Gadol that became a Tzeduki was John the Baptist.
Yeah, let's just make it how the timeline was.
Doesn't work. So John the Baptist would have John the Baptist would have been 140 years later, because John the Baptist was the teacher of Yeshu HaNotzri. So, who presumably, if there's any correctness, it's the year is 2022. Right, so that was the years of Yeshu, and this would have been his teacher. So this story happened 200 years before the Chorban Beis HaMikdash. Chorban Beis HaMikdash was in 70. Actually, it was 70 A.D. So 70 years before the Chorban Beis HaMikdash would have been that Yochanan. So it might have been that one, but it wasn't this one. It's not the Chanukah one, that's for sure. So I don't know about that. That's a historian question. But I'll go upon Yochanan Kohen Gadol is mentioned here as the father of the hero Kohen Gadol Matisyahu. And the Mishnah Berurah says, Kohanim Hagdolim, Gavru B'nei Chashmonai, HaKohanim Hagdolim V'haragum V'hishiu Yisrael Miyadam. So that's my question. Why does the Mishnah Berurah bring this in plural? I believe it's a quote from the whole thing is a quote from the Tur. A little bit from the Rambam and a little bit from the Tur. So I'd like to share with you the following insight. The Gemara says whenever we talk about Gemara as a Chanukah, we're always talking about Gemara and Shabbos. But there's another Gemara in Saita Lavan Gimel Abed Aleph, which says, I thought you guys did this, like learn all this stuff. Tanya, we learned in the Bryce. Yochanan Koy Gadol Shama Baskol Mibeis Kodshe HaKodoshim. Yochanan ben Kohen Gadol, Rashi says on Yom Kippur, was doing the Avodah on Yom Kippur. Yochanan Kohen Gadol, the father, and in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that's the only, it has to be Yom Kippur because otherwise, what was he doing in the Kodesh HaKadoshim? So when he was he heard a Baskol, Shu Oiber. This is what the Baskol said: Nitzachu Talaya Da'azlu Lahagacha Krava Ba'antoichia. Let's brush up on our Aramaic. The whole sugi here, by the way, is whether Baskol speak Aramaic or they speak Hebrew. So that's the sugi.
That's why it's in Sota.
Huh? That's why it's in Sota. Very good. So this Baskol said, let's work on this. Nitzachu Talayu, our children. Talaya is like Havina Talia. That means children, little goats, kids, huh? Yeah, Nitzachu Talaya. Our children will be victorious. Da'azla la'agacha, because they're going into war, krava, la'agacha krava, ba'antoichia, with Antiochus. So he had a nevuah, Baskol, in Aramaic, saying, the Baskol told him, now this had to have been at least a year before, but maybe even 20 years before, 30 years before, I don't know. Because our story is made by Tisyo ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol. But when Yochanan Kohen Gadol was still Meshamish B'Kahuna, on Yom Kippur he heard a Baskol, and in the Baskol it said that there's going to be a war against the Greeks. The Greeks were already going on. The Greek situation was already going on for a number of years. Greeks, Assyrian Greeks, but there's going to be a war between your children and the Greeks, and your children are going to miraculously, I add, win this war. It made no sense that we should win this war, as is always the case in the history of the Jewish people. Doesn't make any particular. We're just so used to it that we think it's normal. It's not normal that we should win a war against the Greeks. I mean, the Greeks were the superpower in of the world. It's like some little community somewhere. It's interesting. Lahavdil, the president of the Ukraine, just said, "We are the Chanukah story."
Okay.
Yeah. But this was really a Chanukah story, and the whole, so it comes out the whole Chanukah story of the Milchamas al Nisim al Niflais, the Milchamas, was told to earlier to Yochanan Kohen Gadol, and that's what he and that's what he heard about the Chanukah story. So the Chanukah story goes back. It didn't start with Matisyo Kohen Gadol. It actually started Yimei Yochanan Kohen Gadol. That's when the whole thing started, because that's when it started in Shomayim. In Shomayim, maybe it took a few years until this war actually happened and that we won. But in Shomayim, we already won on Yom Kippur. It was the Yom Kippur War. We already won on Yom Kippur in the time of Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Well, we know that the miracle of the Shemen of Chanukah was that Matzu, they found Pach Shemen Achas. They found a Pach of Shemen, one Pach of Shemen. The Chaisamai Shel Kohen Gadol. It had a Chasima of the Kohen Gadol. Who was the Kohen Gadol? Not Matisyo, he was fighting the war. The Chaisamai Shel Kohen Gadol, which is altogether a pella. The Mefarshim asked this question, that where do we find that Kohanim walked around putting like stempelach and OUs on the oil? Wasn't part of what they did. We don't find anywhere l'chayra in history, before or after, there's nowhere in Shas that I know where it says, I'm always intimidated by this group, but I don't think it says anywhere that there were oil with Chaisabah Shel Kohen Gadol, except for this one pach. There was one pach that was b'Chaisabah Shel Kohen Gadol. It's a pellet. And they found that, so I'm looking, and I found, like, what's the pshat in this pach? And I printed out the lashon of the kolbai. Kolbai was from the early Achronim. Simon Memdalad is Hilchas Chanukah in the kolbai. And he writes, Rameir Milunil, if I'm not mistaken. So he writes, here's the story, Kishagavar Yisrael al oivehem, va'avdum b'chafhei yoim b'kislev, v'nichnesu laheichol v'leimatzu shementar. First thing is, they went into the base of Mikdash and they didn't find any kosher oil, pure oil. Ela pach echad katan. They only found this one little pach. Shahaya munach b'toich sodeh stay kavua shada, like a box. They found a little pach of oil. Shahaya munach b'toich shada kavua b'kaisel, inside of a box that was part of the wall. Kavua b'kaisel. Shaloi hayu yecholim lahasita. And the point of this box in the wall, right, like a sheda, right, teva, sheda, so it's a box. So the point of this was that tumas yavanim or tumas anything is al yedei hesed, like you move it from one place to the other. This was, maybe you could say two pshat, either it was unmovable or it was mechuber l'karka, so there's no tumas hesed on mechuber l'karka. V'haya pischa sagur, and it was closed up. B'chasum b'chaisamai shel yochanan kohen gadol. If I found this in the, I want you to appreciate this. Took a lot of googling. That clear mefurish. What I was looking for mefurish was that this pach shemed b'chaisabah shel kohen gadol was Yochanan kohen gadol, and even with a description that he brings from Chazal, where I couldn't find the Chazal, but he brings from Chazal. He says Chazal that it was kavua in the karka, and it was chasub by him, and he put it in the karka in the kaisa rather in a way that it simply could not become tabeh. Ubeskiras haPesach b'chaisab, and when they saw how this was closed up and sealed, Hikiru, they said, sometimes you can look at something and you could say, oh, Talmud Chacham did this. It was done properly. Hikiru, shalai nagu b'pach v'lai haya by shemen lahadlik rak lai la'achas v'nasal nes. The rest is history. This pach shemen, which, by the way, I'm fascinated about. I want to speak about it more, but not today. Like this pach shemen, which I found the Dasakenium Bali Tosfos says that when Yaakov Avinu was chazer al pachim kedalim, it was this pach shemen. So there's a lot to talk about here, but I just want to focus. This pach shemen was clearly the shemen of Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Now, why did Yochanan Kohen Gadol? Why did Yochanan Kohen Gadol decide to take a pach shemen, whatever pach shemen it was, seal it up, put it in the wall, put it in a box, and cement it into the wall of the Heichal? Why did he decide to do that? The answer is because the Gemara says they had a baskol. So since he had a baskol, I'm theorizing, since he had a baskol, something like that, since he heard a baskol that there's going to be a war, and there was the derech clearly already back that it wasn't just that the Shabbat became tabeh. The pshat is v'tibu kol hashmadim. Like they were making fun of the Jews. They said, oh, let's move this, let's move that, let's touch this, let's do that, because I thought they won't be able to use it. I don't even know if it was, I don't know, I'm just guessing, but I don't even know if the pshat and the malice was, like, let's make it so that they can't, let's get rid of the menorah. That's like a yeshivish thing to say. They didn't like hadlakas. So they're stop, like, mach chayzik von yidden, like, look, anything we move over here, they're not going to be able to light the menorah. They're going to be up, yeah.
Some, because they made a separation between the Jews and non-Jews.
Oh.
So we didn't say, the type of thing we're different, so we're going to take revenge. How goof that.
Very good. Everyone hear that, Svara? In other words, they were. You think we're different, so now you're not going to have oil for the menorah. Good start. Says the Kolboy Mipnei Zeis Kinu Chachamim Shoy Bois Hadar Shiu Oisin Ela Yamim B'Chol Shana V'Shana Yemei Mishta V'Simcha V'Halel You Madlikin Aneris Al Pischei Abatim. So it wasn't. So what we've done here is it's not just a Pach Shemen. It was the Pach Shemen, which Yochanan Kohen Gadol, a generation I think earlier, certainly not that year. Because there's only one Kohen Gadol. And this would be why the Mishnah Berurah says that the Netzachin was by the Kohanim Gedolim. There's really two Kohen Gadols involved. There was the Kohen Gadol Yochanan. So the story started, what's important for us is that the story began on Yom Kippur, not sure when. It was really, that's when the war was going on in Shemayim. And then Oiskadrukt, the Milchama was on Chanukah, in the year of Chanukah, 200 years behind the time of Matis Yob and Yochanan and Kohen Gadol.
I get that one kasha, that why one Pach? It's not enough to get you through to get Tavor.
So this, you have to come Friday night. Because it's a gewaldige important question. Why don't you just make already enough? Just make enough oil.
There were more, and they saw those lockers and destroyed them, and this is the one they didn't find.
I mean, maybe there were more. Lockers.
They were b'kavanat tameh.
Timu kol hashmonim.
So maybe there were others.
Why would it take 8 days to make oil of tahor? You just have to find one person who didn't become tameh mace. You didn't take some olive squeeze and then you've got oil. Was there not one person in Israel who wasn't tameh?
There was a Messiah in Klal Yisrael that had to come from a certain place. That's where the oil had to come from, and then they had to be guarded all the way through. Came from a place in the Galil, so it had to be guarded all the way through. So it took the shot in the 8 days was to get from there to here.
So it's not about 7 days until now.
No.
No FedEx.
I want to get to Reb Tzadok. You know, the sugya that we're learning in Tzidkas HaTzadik is the sugya of Isarusa de Lasata. And Tzidkas HaTzadik, Reb Tzadok says some very, very amazing things about the sugya of Isarusa de Lasata. One of the things that just personally struck me, and I just want to review it, so it personally moved me actually, is that he brings rise from Gemaras, if you recall, that we always know it's a good idea to be don people a kaf schus. Give people the benefit of the doubt. But he brings rayas, Rabbi Tzadok brings rayas, and it's in a few places, but it's also in the Tzidkas HaTzadik we learn, that if we go back, even in history, and we think about some historical figure that seems to have done something which was so wrong. He gives an example where a mayor learned from Acher. And you take that, and in your mind, or speak it out, I don't know if you have to speak it out, but in your mind, you're don l'kav schus, Rabbi Meir. So it changes the whole Shemayim. Meaning that the Gemara says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying over Torah, Mishmader Meir lo yamar, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying over Torah in the name of all the Tanoim. Rabbah said this. And in the name of Rameir, he wouldn't say any Torah. Why? Because he learned from Acher. So Rabbah said, I could answer why he learned from Acher. He said this to Eliyahu Navi. I could answer why he learned from Acher. That's because he only took the good, not the bad. Lipasei Zorak. So Eliyahu Navi said, okay, now Hashem is saying the words of Acher. You see that it wasn't until Rabbah Bar Bar Chana, if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't until Rabbah so many years later, a couple centuries later, where somebody was don Rabbi Meir l'kav schus, and it changed the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu was quoting Torah. One of the 7 rayas of Reb Tzadok that you could go back and it means to say, like if you're learning Torah and you want to take a break for a minute, and you stop and you beat down somebody l'kav schus. It could be your parents, your grandparents, somebody in history who seems to have done something wrong. And you figure out maybe this is why he did it. Actually changed it in Shemayim. Like what a powerful thing.
7 rayas, that what?
That when you change something here, when you speak it out differently here, you're don l'kav schus here. You're changing it even in Hashem's books. You're literally changing the books. That's the koach we have of Isarusa de Lasata. It's an amazing koach. And it goes to so many things. I'm just giving an example.
So after that, Hashem would quote Rabbi Meir and not say Achim?
That's right. That's the Mefurish in the Gemara. The Gemara says that Eliyahu reported. Now Hashem is saying Bishma the Rameir. Rameir. No, because I don't think he would quote Acher. That's way too far. Yeah, unless somebody's down him l'kavschus. You want to go there now? It gets us back to John the Baptist, but let's leave that for another subject. It's an interesting tie-in, all of that. So let me share with you the following. In the Yom Kippur, in the davening, we say over and over again that in the avoda of the Kohen Gadol, so it was achas lamala v'sheva lamata. Achas v'achas v'shtayim. What was that? So you want to explain the avoda, Avram? David, explain the avoda, Kohen Gadol. Achas v'achas. Oh, so beautiful, very good. So you have, and it was a lot of with the avodas hadam, spritzing hadam. It was achas Hashem, v'sheva lamata, and 7 down. So Chazal explain what was going on over here. Achas v'shtayim. What's going on in this avodah of the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur? He was davening for Klal Yisrael, right? And he was davening for the whole year for Klal Yisrael, as we know Mefurish. And what he understood was, this was his job. What he understood was that whatever's going to happen in Klal Yisrael, already is happening now Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur in Shamayim. And you have to daven first. The way the Kohen Gadol worked in the Kodesh HaKodshim, very, very important to know that his avodah in the Kodesh HaKodshim was to be masakin whatever he can in the Shamayim now. How you masakin it? By doing something in this world. So that's the Isarusa de Lasata is affecting Isarusa de Leila, as I always say, like a rain cloud, like a rain cycle. So what the Kohen Gadol was doing in the Kodesh, Achas Hashem, was manifesting itself lamata in our world. This achas Hashem can I get achas shtayim shalosh? That's the sheva. The Arizal wrote a whole kuntras on the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. It's called Ya'iru Shiva Neiros. There were 7, not 8, candles in the Beis Hamikdash. What he starts off saying is that the pasuk says that the Kohen Gadol should light 7 candles. El mul pnei ha-menorah ya'iru oisam. So, in other words, it's 7 candles, and it's going towards the middle, which is going up to Hashem. What this means is, just our Arizal 101, what this means is that everything that happens in the Shemayim manifests itself in the Aretz, but always through 7, like 7 spheres. Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus. It always comes in 7 days of the week, 7 years of the Shemitah, etc. So everything comes out in 7. Nature is 7. There are 7 days of the week. The Maharal speaks about this exact same thing without the Kabbalah. The Arizal explains with the Kabbalah that what happens with the Achas in the world of Bria, before the Alba Disparoda, before that hafrada takes place, it's achas, and then the achas, like we always say under the chuppahs, that it's one neshama broke apart, and now it's coming back together again, right? We always say that. So community, Eretz Yisrael, Nitzoitzos, are neshamas that are spread all over the world, and then they come together, each one with their rest of their neshama. That's the pshat in the Kehilla. It's the taich of a Kehilla. It's the taich of a marriage, probably even the pshat in a chavrusa if you find the right one. It's 2 neshamas coming together, and that we're together to begin with. This is very important. You have a rebbe. This is different neshamas coming together. So all of this in the world of Yom Kippur, everything is achas. But all of this, when it comes into the world, it's in the world of Shiva, 7, represented by the menorah, and that's why the menorah has 7 kanim, and that's why they all face inwards, al mul pnei menorah, to the one, which just means Hashem. So this is the achas v'sheva. Got it? Don't say I never taught you anything. This is clear the Arizal. Achas, very important. This is the avodah of Yom Kippur, but more important for us is that's the avodah of Chanukah. Because what happens on Chanukah is that, okay, we light 8 candles because it was, but the miracle, because it was 8 days, but the miracle, of course, was with the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, which was 7 candles, Ya'iru Oisab. So what happens was that, like the Gemara says that people would come to the Beis HaMikdash and they would see the Ner Maravi and the menorah lit, and they would know Shashchina, they would be happy that Shashchina Shiur Yisrael. They would know that, okay, the Shiur Yisrael, why does that show you that the Shechina Shiur Yisrael? It wasn't just because there was a miracle there of the Ner Maravi. The Shechina Shiur Yisrael means that whatever is going on, one, in Shemayim has actually come all the way down to earth and grounded, represented by the 7 candles of the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. Achas v'shiva.
But the 7 includes the one in the middle, so it's really 6 of them.
But the one in the middle, 3-3, and the one in the middle faces up to the achas. Not that the one in the middle is the achas. The sheva all has to go like this. Right? That's how the sheva goes. So everything goes up to the top. And this is the Isarusa de Lasato, turning it to Isarusa de Leila, Isarusa de Lasato. Why is this so important for us? Because this is how it worked. You see this mechanism, the cycle with Yochanan Kohen Gadol. So Yochanan Kohen Gadol is there on Yom Kippur, Libala, dealing on the level of achas, like Havdil, a genetic engineer. Like he's in the achas. He's babish in the achas. This is the Kohen Gadol pamachas b'shana in the Kohen Gadol. And if he wasn't holding by echad, by the way, if he had in his head times in the Bayishedi, if he had shtei reshuyos in his head, he's out of there. Drops dead. You cannot deal with achas if you're shtayim, which is why the Kohanim Gedolim did not make it. Yochanan Kohen Gadol did. And he was bespointed in the achas, and in this achas he saw a baskol, he heard a baskol, saying that there's going to be a war, and the war is going to be, what a beautiful Gemara, the Talia, that my children, your children are going to go. This was the baskol. Interesting, the Gemara makes this point in Sotah Lamed Gimel that maybe earlier in the time of the Bayis Rishon, this would have been even a nevuah, not a baskol. What's he hearing? What's he hearing voices for in the Kodesh HaKodshim? He's hearing the achas. And this is the achas v'shiva. And the shiva are the neiros, which we're commemorating on Chanukah. So that's what I wanted to be mavar here today. So we have here, let's just do a quick summary, a 2-sentence summary of all this, that what we have here is the cycle of Chanukah. Like, it's not about just like lighting a Chanukiah. And what's happening here is, so I want to show you this, the Bnei Yissaschar tells us that not every miracle do we make a yontiv for. Next to it. Lamalei Asuli Zakar Nesti Yeshua Bahamadas Hachama. Would have been a cool holiday. Why are you celebrating? Because the sun stopped. Nesta Aso Yoshafat Chizkiyahu. And he says that the reason is, this is Bnei Yissaschar in Chanukah, Hile called Nes v'Yeshua Nasili Yisrael Ha'yadei Shemiskala Eza Ora Elyon B'Shamayim Mibal. When a Nes happens, that's a gilui of the Ora Elyon. Ha'yadei Zeh Mishave Nes B'Zman Hatzarech. In other words, listen to what happens over here. At some point, something happens in the Shamayim B'Yachas. When is it going to be Miskala? We don't know. It could be like the Nes of our own lives. We all have Nisim here. It could be, or we're going to have Nisim. It could be the Nisim of our own lives. This happened in Shemayim 200 years ago, 300 years ago by some Elter Zayda, that it took place. But the ones that are going to Chazal knew that the Giluyim that are going to take place every year at a certain time, they made a yontiv out of. So it's not like every nest gets a yontif. Uh-oh. It's not that every nest gets a yontif. That's not the pshat. The pshat is every gilui, there's a gilui which is a one-time gilui. That's what's going to happen. There's a gilui which says the Bnei Yisachar, which is going to be manifested every single year, and he says that's the Nes Chanukah. He brings a Zohar. That's the Nes Chanukah. Every single year we're celebrating the cycle, which started from Yochanan Kohen Gadol. The Kohanim Gedolim saw this and did this for us, and we should all be zocha to nitzachon in every nisim and niflois on everything that we need. All the siyata d'shmaya we need to live well and to bring up our children al pi Torah v'yirah shamayim. For Eil's and Chanukah.
So this fits with the idea that the secret of the din is on Hanukkah when it started with Kehilla.
Yes. Toshe ben Noisha Dako. Dako's Tafei. The Hasidim know Kapar Yom Kippur, we do Shuvah till Hanukkah. Toshe ben Noisha Dako.
It seems to fit.
Very similar to what can't be in the Mishnah. The Mishnah was English. Yeah, very fun. Go ahead. Thanks for coming. It's a whole different looking hut. Thank you. Koyach. Forgive me, I have to go.
Sure enough.
Why not? Cheers.